All right, guys, it's time for the Next Level Guy Show, a men's interview, interest, and improvement-focused podcast featuring interviews with the greats from all industries to help you better your life. Each week, a new episode features an interview with one of the greats, covering all aspects of their story, from life hacks to tips and protocols that have allowed them to live life on the next level. We then highlight concrete action steps that you can use to improve your life. And now, your host, Ian Dawson McKay.
And today, the guest is Danny McMillan. Danny creates daily videos on becoming a more emotionally secure, physically sound, and happier man with better connected relationships in your 40s. Too many people think life needs to slow down at 40, but Danny shows you that with some lifestyle changes and some emotional fixes, your 40s can be your best time ever. Danny aims to help men to reach their full potential, fostering masculinity with a purpose, building strong standards and boundaries, and respect in relationships and in life. He also runs Seller Sessions, which is the world's first dedicated marketing show for Amazon, FBA and private label sellers. No need to pay for expensive courses or overpriced masterminds. Every week, they dive into tactics and techniques that are actionable and delivered in bite-sized chunks, and all for free. And now, let's get to the interview. Thank you so much for coming on. It's an honour to feature somebody who I've followed on social media. Now I've hit the dreaded 40, as people say. But for people who maybe don't recognise you or don't recognise the name, how would you describe who you are? How would you sum up who Danny is and why people should follow your channel on Instagram?
Yeah, so the first part is that, as you know, is that I've also got another podcast. We're up to nearly 1,000 episodes. So in the industry that I operate in, they know me from my podcast, Seller Sessions. I also put on Seller Sessions Live conference each year and various different events that I speak at. I just did a world tour earlier this year. So I covered Europe, UK, Australia, US. Where else did we cover? I think that's pretty much it, but there's quite a lot that we covered.
Just
there.
a few.
And and I work with brands that sell on the Amazon platform as well as other channels that, you know, they range between 7-8 figure brands. People don't realize there's like a community there because they go to Amazon, right? And you just think, well, I'm buying products from Amazon, but about 55% of the products bought on Amazon are what are called third party sellers. So that's the industry I've been in since about 2015.
So what was it then that while you were in that, while you were selling, you know, while you were doing Amazon, you know, and you've obviously had a varied career. We're talking about music and stuff like that as well before we started. But what was that turning point that made you think, okay, I'm seeing issues in my 40s, but I'm seeing that in other people? You know, why did you create the channel? How has it become such a passion project for you that, you know, that you've created this fantastic channel, giving this great advice? Was there a turning point that caused that?
What do you mean, Men Plus 40?
Yeah. I mean, what was it that kind of, was there a switch that just came off and you thought, no, I'm having this issue, I'm seeing my friend having this issue? You know, why was it, where was the impetus to start the channel?
Well, it started before the channel. So if we go back to October 2020, right? So basically, we're in the latter part of the first year of COVID, right? Everything dropped in March. And what I did throughout that period in the summer is like, everyone's on lockdown. There's not much going on. So in my industry, I went on a bit of a run. I remember saying, right, I'm going to do a podcast every day. While everyone's on lockdown, let's just keep everyone motivated. So I've done 77 days in a row. And that was 7 days a week. So we're dropping content on a daily basis. Now, what's happened is for the last 7 years, my health's been pretty bad with brain fog. So there's no real kind of diagnosis for it. So I spent 7 years, from around 2015. Basically, I spent tens of thousands on tests, consultants, supplements. And basically the way it is with brain fog is that I would start my day, I'd be fine, right? First 3 hours, and then the brain fog kicks in, I'm done. So it's like a race against the clock to get as much work done as possible. And it's so deliberating that you lay down and your day's gone. And so it got to the point where I've done all these tests, consultants, done everything you could possibly manage, and spent over 35 grand on it. Then on October the 4th, as I said, we're in the second half of that lockdown, so we're going into that winter lockdown. I just took myself into the garage and I said, right, I'm going to break my body down and rebuild it because nothing else has worked, right? And in the end, I did 207 days in a row. I probably watched too many David Goggin videos, right? I ended up putting myself in bed 3 times with fatigue, but then obviously I kept going. I just, even didn't matter how I feel, strapped my arms up, strapped the knees up, just went in there. And just to be aware, it might have been 207 days of consistency, but they weren't 1 hour long sessions and all intense. I tapered up and down. The goal behind it was, what can I do in order to, we're in lockdown, there's not much else going on. The brain fog was, everyone will tell you when you go to naturopaths or whoever, and doctors, NHS, doesn't matter what it is, you just got to relax, you got to lay down. Take these tablets and it hopefully will work, and you improve your symptoms and all these kind of things. And then I did read something that was talking about, is that how strong is your body? So once you got things like brain fog, so I was diagnosed from the testing, I had SIBO, I had heavy metal poisoning, so arsenic and high levels of arsenic and mercury. I also had mold as well from a previous property that I lived in. So what that does, it depletes your body. So the whole point behind it was, can I then work out a way of getting through this brain fog? I had no choice, because it's not a life to sit there every single day, 7 days a week, and then you're searching in the gaps, trying to search on the internet to try something new each, do this for 6 weeks. Do this for 2 months, do this for 3 months. So then as I was getting through the training and as the weight started to come down, and because I was measuring those as well, and then I started adding other things in like TRT, my testosterone was like 390. It's now around 1150, but I'm under a clinic. So it's at the top end of the range. So that was one thing. My body's depleted, or my T levels are low, and which, when you look at nowadays, last 30 years, men's testosterone levels are down huge amount. And obviously when you get to 30, it starts to drop off from there. Depends how well you're taking care of your body. So I started lifting. I also had my B12 done. And I think the range is something like 200 to 700 from memory. I can't remember exactly. Mine was like 79. And I kid you not, the lady turned around and said, I'm surprised you're not dead, because it was so low. I mean, it was a joke, but so was the levels. So I got onto B12 as well. But one of the most interesting things, and I've got no proof or science to prove it or back it, when I'm doing my weighing in for because I've got a trainer as well for lifting, and I got a boxing coach. I used to box as a kid, mainly in the gym. But what would happen is with I think they're called impedance, weighing machines. So basically they'll tell you about visceral fat and stuff, and they're only guidelines. Yeah. So my visceral fat, I think, was like 22. It's now 9 or 10, my visceral fat. And what I've noticed is, as my visceral fat was coming down, the brain fog was starting to clear more and more. And from my understanding, from a doctor level, I've got no letters after my name, just plain Dr. Google. The fact is, when you're dealing with visceral fat, it's highly, inflammable in your body. So you get a lot of inflammation from it. So the more visceral fat you have, the more inflammation. So it sets off other issues within the body, talking it in a non-technical terms. But I noticed once that started to come down, it started to clear up until it completely went. So that was one of the things that drove it as well, because I spent years building businesses, not taking care of my health and body or anything else. And then all the other stuff kind of comes into play, you know. So that's it really. But it was one of those things where the switch went off, you'd had enough, and then it was like the last roll of the dice. You're either going to get it sorted or you're not. And then since that was able to clear up, you know, I'm much more productive. I pretty much work 7 days a week, but I taper up and down for weekends. I've got my life set up so I work from home. So it's a lot easy. Gym next door, recording studio, the podcast studio here, office, front room next door. We live in a little village with like quite nice surroundings, which is a lot different from the kid from the council estate, you know.
Not bad for a setup, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I've had to build it. It's taken years. I've done the snakes and ladders of life. It's gone up and gone down, gone up, gone down. And I think what happened is probably I've went through every possible ways to fuck things up and fail. And because my determination, I run out of things to fuck up. So where I am in life is because I probably fucked up just about everything and run out of those things. So it's kind of swung the other way, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, that's where a lot of guys, you know, it's like, show me somebody who hasn't failed and I'll show you somebody who's never tried. You know, I love that quote because I never really understood it. I always played it safe when I was younger. And then all of a sudden I can remember just thinking, no, enough's enough. I was going to a pub, hating it. You know, I was with friends I didn't enjoy spending time with. And I remember just starting the podcast thinking, I need something that shows you how to do things. And this is when I was like 20 odd. And all of a sudden it was just, I can't find it. I'm going to make one. And this is why I always enjoy finding guys like you who have, you know, who have gone through that journey. I can tell people and show them how they can change, how they can better themselves. But I mean, a lot of guys get to like 40. I turned 40 this year, and they sit there and go, because suddenly they see no friends. They see their wives, you know, they're not having sex with their wife. Their kids don't really know them. The job they're in, they hate it and stuff like that. Do you think that's a big issue with, because a lot of guys don't know what they want from life, that they suddenly get shaped by their job, they get shaped by their family, they lose their hobbies because they're told what to do. You know, they follow the ringleaders rather than follow their own path. And, you know, it's hard for guys to change because they don't even know what they want to change to.
Yeah, I mean, you've asked about a dozen questions there, but
yes,
one thing I want
to...
what I would, let's pick out these bit by bits and break them down. So first things first, right? So what we need to understand as guys, especially when you start to hit 40, we do not operate on the same biological timeline. So let me just break that down, what I mean by that. So if a lady wants to have children, she needs to have a work to a safety window of a healthy delivery, right? So there's a bit of a timestamp there of once you start going past 35, it becomes much more difficult. We know this because me and my wife, we'd lost a son and daughter. So know what's at stake here. We can also argue that women grow up faster and develop faster than men. But on the flip side, you've got guys, generally, they want to provide, right? So what happens, they're using their 20s to learn their trade, their craft, and basically they maybe decide they're going to go off and build a business and would have some failures along the way. So you could say, in terms of earning power, all this starts to take shape in their mid-30s and peaks mid-50s. This is going to be the time that you have your most resources, assets, and career on lock. So when you think about it, if you're working off your partner's timeline, you're looking at it as, okay, kids 28, 29, 30, yeah, or before 35. And then 35 is 5 years away from 40. But you haven't got your shit together normally if you decided to do this, because most people don't have what they want until their mid-30s anyway. So a guy might think, oh, okay, we've had all the children now, now it's time to move into the second half of life. When the reality is, if you've done a lot of work and you've built certain things, you peak 35 to 55. But because you're following the biological timeline of your partner, because that's fine, it's not a problem, but you see it that way. And the other side of that as well is years ago, and we're talking about centuries, men used to live to about 40 generally, whether that's through going back really early, if you look at evolutional psychology and biology. Now, they'll get to something like 40. But that'll be disease, war, lack of medicine, etc. So there might be something that plays in there that you hit a certain age and you go, boom, that's it. Or you realise you're roughly halfway through your life. So then you go, well, what's it all about? What am I going to do next that's going to make a difference to my life? What's going to give me a purpose now? Because you may have got the house, paid off the mortgage, or in a good paying job, and then you're getting bored with the job now. Your kids are starting to grow up. You may not have the same level of intimacy and stuff in the relationship with your partner. So you start to get dissatisfied. You start to maybe feel like I'm a wallet. You know, I turn up, do this, take care of the kids, and there's the lack of appreciation there. But all that stuff can start to fester. And so then you decide, well, what's next, you know? And then if you've got your peer groups disappeared and then you don't go out with all your friends, then you're going to start to feel isolated. So really, it's like, how do you build all these factors back in and learn the fact that I'm 47 and I mentioned before this call, at 30, I thought I was done because I wanted to get to a certain level in the music industry. Like 30 was old. Do you understand? And then I hit 40, wasn't too bad, a couple of things. I'm now at 47 and I'm like, how do I extend this run now? Do you know what I mean? I've done a lot of work to get there, but how do I extend the run? So my mindset has changed towards it, not through just being deluded. I know I can't do what I did at 20, at 47 in the gym or whatever, but it doesn't matter. You work smarter. But I'm excited now. I still get up in the morning. I've still got energy and I want to get guys to come back and find out what's your purpose. Because if you've got a purpose and the reason to get up in the morning, a lot of things can change. But then you have to look around your life and take ruthless accountability. What do I don't like? Am I happy with how I look? Do I feel happy? Am I tired all the time? Am I bored? What can I do that's not self-soothing and just sitting in the pub to get over the week until Monday to go back to the job that I don't really want to do? And it's really starting to, first you have to work out what areas you want to prove, what you don't like. Some people say everything, but you've got to pick one or two of them and then work on those. But we can get into more questions.
Because I definitely think that's something that a lot of guys listening, would have been nodding their heads, that you suddenly, it's not like it's an immediate thing. You wake up one day and you start going, I haven't been out in months. I haven't, I haven't lost the connection with my partner. The kids see me like as a wallet. I've got no respect in the job, and suddenly it's like, what do I do now? And we all have, like, a lot of guys have this belief that 40 is right. That's it. You're screwed.
Yeah.
You can't go any farther. Whatever job you're in, you're screwed. Whatever relationship in, that's it. If you break any of those, that's it. Your career's over. Your relationships are over. Especially if you haven't had the kids, you haven't had the relationship. And I felt that pressure. As a guy coming up to 30, people are like, why are you not dating? Or you should be out having kids by now. And you start realizing that your parents are going to die soon. They're getting to that age. I mean, I'm 40 now. I know that I could get married now. Say 75 roughly is the kind of, depending where you're living, is like the average age of death. So I could have 35 years with somebody, but in my head, I'm like, I must meet them now. I'm legit, and I could feel that sudden. Do you think that's where that midlife crisis comes from? That we suddenly take stock of our life, we actually review.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll review, and then we become a bit disappointed if we haven't hit the markers that we want. right? And then that feeds into the engine, which is, unfortunately, that's a negative feedback loop. And then we can carry on down that path. And I suppose if you think that it's like a death from 1,000 cuts, isn't it? If you get chipped away at 365 days a year for 10 years, it's very subtle, it's very insidious, right? But it happens over time. And then you stop and you go, right, okay, this has been going on 10 years. What happened? And I think what happens with guys that come out of relationships and they've got no connection, human connection with anyone else. And so they go and move into a flat. They're trying to pay for 2 properties or however that's balanced out in the way the divorce works. And then they end up being quite lonely. And one of my goals is to get guys to level up, because regardless if you don't stay in the relationship, if you step your game up whilst in the relationship, either it fixes the relationship or it doesn't. And if it don't, the chances are you're going to have options because of the work that you did, you know?
I mean, I've had a friend who, it didn't matter what relationship, it didn't matter how long he'd been single for, he would go out, meet the girl, and suddenly he would abandon all, you could never get him to come out for a pint, you could never get him to come and do something social. He lived the relationship, and then when he would break up, he would suddenly be texting, expecting you to drop everything and come out. It was almost like he didn't, it was like became like, like it was a symbiotic kind of organism. He lived through the relationship. His identity became the relationship, and that's what I think was terrifying. Was he lost who he was because he only seemed to feel fulfilled by being in that relationship. And I think this is where this whole thing about toxic masculinity, but then Andrew Tate has become so successful and things like that, because people are so lost that they allow a relationship become their life. But how do we even start distinguishing between what we should have? Because we're shaped by our parents, by our upbringing, schooling, cultural beliefs. Yeah. How on earth do we even define what masculinity is to us? Because to be a man, it's great to say, yeah, it's this, this, and this. But there's so many different levels of masculinity, of what people want and things. And, if it's a sort of flowing river as your priorities change through life and the different seasons of life, how do we even define what masculinity is and what makes a good man for you compared to what might be for me compared to Johnny down the street?
Yeah. Well, this is interesting, right? Because when we look at it, you've got to look at masculinity and femininity as social constructs, right? So they vary across the cultures, time periods, whereas male and female refer to biological sexes of human beings, right? So you can be a man that isn't necessarily masculine, and that's all right, right? Okay. But you are still taking care of your own bullshit and you are a provider, right? So we've gone back to, I remember you asked me about becoming a man, you don't become a man when you're 18, right? And I remember you mentioning this, and it's true, you don't become a man when you're 18, that's an age, right? You go from a boy to a man when you take full accountability for yourself, right? So you have the ability and the intention, right? So you might not, you had the ability and or the intention, because some people don't always have the ability cash-wise to do, taking care of things, but the intent's there. Most men want that, yeah? You also have an ethical code to do the right thing even when it's hard. And you also got to look at your decision-making and say, does this decision serve me or the greater good? And that doesn't mean self-sacrifice, but it's about trying to make the right decision. So going back to what you're saying is, so as masculinity is a social construct, I'll give you my version, right? So emotional intelligence and self-awareness, right? So this is where emotional literacy comes in. Now you're talking masculine and you go, what are you talking about? Emotions, Anger is an emotion. A lot of good men in prison when they lost their shit. You get on top of your emotions understand how to control and convey them through emotional literacy, right, and emotional intelligence, you won't be in prison. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So there's always that mix-up of, I'm not saying to guys, roll around the floor crying like a little baby. A woman's going to find that repulsive as well, right? Equally, you're so shut down and you can't process your emotions, including anger, you're going to end up with a life where you're going to be deeply unhappy. So there has to be a middle ground, right? Then you've got respect. All men want respect, yeah? But respect starts with the self, right? And with self-respect and respecting others, this is where boundaries come in. This is the invisible line between two people. You go to here, you stop, and then that person starts, right? Honesty, integrity, and being direct in your communications. You know, it's very feminine to be indirect in your communications, but you want to put empathy and compassion on your words, right? Because it's the way that people feel. So if you think a lot of women say, I feel like, it's because they're talking from a feelings situation. Now, if you're straightforward with your communications and you're really harsh and you hurt their feelings, of course she's going to say you got small dick energy. You know, if she is based on, do you understand? So there's a level of empathy, compassion, etc. Of course, the key one is responsibility and accountability. This is where you hold yourself highly accountable, but you hold people around you. I don't have anyone around me I don't hold accountable. And they can hold me accountable. It's a two-way street. If you can't be held accountable, you're out the circle. I'm not dealing with people that don't take accountability for themselves, man or woman. Could not care less. Does that make sense? You have to set a time. Humility. You need to have the ability to admit mistakes and the ability to self-reflect. You've got to look at willingness to learn and grow, because if you don't learn and grow, and you know that only a fool knows everything, we don't know everything. So there's much to expand on. Men are logical, right? We're always looking to solve problems. So we go off and find those answers. And so if you've got the willingness to learn, you've got the willingness to grow. Some of this sounds a bit woo-woo, right? We're talking masculine here. I'm not talking about getting back on the council state and let's have a tear up. But you need to be able to do that as well to a certain level. Do you understand? Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Well, I mean, this is where because I hate the term like masculinity, and you know, like to me, it should be like I break it down into controlling your emotions better. You know, for finding a purpose in your life. Like I used to ask this question: what is divine masculinity? And then I started getting to the point it's like I've got friends who are both male. You know, like we've all got the same genitalia, etc. And they could maybe scrap every time we go out and get drunk with some random guy who looked across the bar. And then I could have a guy who's a complete nerd, would hardly throw a punch, still a man. But they're, you know, if you're living to your own values, taking accountability, you know, like dealing with your emotions, things like that. Like to me, we need to reframe masculinity and what actually is the key concepts of a man. Like you're saying, accountability, controlling your emotions. It's this kind of like twats like Andrew Tate who, you know, come in and say like, oh, you should treat women like this or you should do this and that. You know, it's if you haven't got somebody or your own vision of your own life, you're going to get controlled by others, be it your relationships, be it like a guru, like a self, you know, and I think this is where a lot of guys go wrong is I want to improve. I'll look at X and I'll try to be like them. But if that's not the role model for them, or they're the guy's a dick in real life or whatever, you know, and they buy the program expecting to change them, you know, and I think this is a thing. A lot of guys get 40, they get split with their wife and they go and try pickup, which then they create a character of you know, when you're trying to meet somebody, and girls see through that if you're not authentic. Then they try to, they're not working on themselves, so they're not becoming attractive. They're not building a life for themselves, so they're not, you know, so they're not becoming happy. And then you're rephrasing somebody else's prompts and questions and negs and all that shite. And this is then guys start hating themselves because they're not meeting anybody and they struggle. I just like, how would you get guys to start looking at all aspects of their lives and saying, because they say what gets measured gets managed.
Mm.
How do we start going, okay, my relationships are at this, I need to work on that. My physical health, like you were saying, is at this, and I need it to be that. You've trialed everything and then looked back and seen what worked, what didn't.
Mm.
How does the average Joe doing that, who's sitting in their bed sit, who's sitting in their life crumbling around them, what advice would you get to somebody to start and doing some probable analysis of their life?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because once you've been hit and taken down and you're sitting in the flat and you've lost everything, it's very difficult for people, and I admire it, for people that come back. I call it the switch. Once the switch goes off, you go, I've had enough of this. I'm not going to do this anymore. And so, like when you are on low income, and I've been there, I've been broke. I've done it every step, and there are things that you can do, and the quickest, and it's not a quick fix, but the lowest hanging fruit is take care of your body, right? So let's break it down. Let's just say you're in a flat, you're on your own. You haven't got a huge amount of money, but you've got time. You can sit there and you can get 4 cans of Stella at night and drink those, watch Netflix, etc., etc. Or if you can't afford to buy weights, now I've got like a gym now, but my gym was my garage, which started as a cheap floor-to-ceiling punch bag. And I added equipment. But a quick fix for you, which I did in COVID, it's not that I couldn't afford to buy the weights. It's just everyone bought all the weights. So when I started, I was like, yeah, and you couldn't get a hold of weights anywhere, right? Because it's sold out everywhere because with everyone being at home, they go, okay, I'm going to start getting healthy. Do you remember that? Everyone went on the health kick.
Definitely.
So by the time that October come around, I went to buy some weights. Couldn't get anything. It's going to take weeks for delivery. So what I did is went on to Gumtree. So in the US, you're going to have Craigslist, etc. Go into Gumtree, go to the clearance section, or look on there for rusty weights, right? Just some dumbbells and barbells and stuff. Most people want to get rid of that stuff. 1, it's rusty. 2, they buy the equipment and never get around to use it. It's no good if it's plastic, but we're talking metal plates, metal parts. Pick the stuff up, take it home, go on to Amazon, get the rust remover, just soak it. Wild brush it all off, get all the rust off it, then buy a metal spray, put down some cardboard, you got brand new weights. So suddenly for 50 to 80 quid maybe, by the time you bought the rust remover, you got a little mini gym set up. If you can't afford that, go onto Amazon and get yourself a pull-up bar for $14.99 that fits in the architrave of one of your doors in a flat.
Yeah,
and then go in and do 1 pull-up, because a lot of people can't do pull-ups. I remember when I started, I used to do the pull-ups where basically just in the downwards motion. I was so unfit, I couldn't even do 1 pull-up. And now I do them in sets now, because we're in monster sets when we're training with a PT. But then I can do like 10 on each set now, even though I'm doing 4 sets of those with 4 or 5 other exercises, but I couldn't do 1. But the good thing was that you could set a task for 30 days. You do 1 day, 2 the next, 3 the next, then you're going to hit a curve and you might only get 3 out the next. And then you can build it up and build it up and build it up and build it up. If you can't afford $14.99 for that, then do some bodyweight exercises. You can do push-ups, etc., do sit-ups, crunches, star jumps, all of those kind of things. Let's get to food. And I've done it. I'm on a cut at the moment and fucking horrible. Chicken and broccoli. It's cheap as chips, plenty of protein in there, and when you look at microwave meals versus 250 grams of chicken and some frozen broccoli, I know it's not going to be great eating that 4 to 6 times a day, but it really does drop the weight, honestly, if you can bear it. You get sick of eating all the chicken. Even if you put some gravy granules that's got like 5 calories in it, so you're soaking the chicken, etc., that's actually cheaper than most ready meals. So that would be the early cheat. And the reason I say that, so you've got all this time on your hands. What happens is you commit to it. You do two things. You commit into your food. So you've got two disciplines you're working on. You commit to your food and you commit to your training. Your training's next to nothing, right? Because you come home from work if you're working. And if you're only doing one pull-up a day, it's not a big commitment, right? Until it starts to become more of a commitment. Then you add more exercise. You start off small. Because what people don't realize, 1% improvement per day compounds to 3,800% because everyone wants to rush fast. So if you can weave in those disciplines, then what happens? The weight starts to come down. People start to notice. You start to feel better. Then the world starts to look a bit better around you. Then you go, oh, what's next? My clothes don't fit properly. All right. But now I'm in shape, right? Or I'm in better shape. You don't have to have tailored suits and nice watches and all that kind of stuff. You can get away with your 40s. Do you know what I mean? If you're in your 40s, who cares to a certain level? But you can still be presentable. And you can go onto Amazon, buy muscle tops or whatever. I'm saying muscle tops, but, fitted tops. Yeah. A tenner, 12 quid, 13 quid. Do you see where I'm going? It doesn't have to be expensive, and you can do this over periods. And then what happens? The world starts to feedback, because then people will go, "You're looking good," and you go, "Oh, thank you." You've got a bit of admiration there, right? What people don't realize, and I went through it as well, through losing a load of weight and etc., doing the training, massive changes people's behavior towards me. Whether that's I'm married, I've been married 28 years, but obviously I speak at events and all that kind of stuff. People communicate differently. Men are more respectful. Women, will come and chat to you and da-da-da, even to the point of squeezing your arms and that, crossing the boundary. I laugh it off, but you see where I'm going. Yep. And you won't know any of this, because what blew my mind about all this was you're getting more female attraction. Not that they're all making a pass at you. Let's not get it twisted. But it seems like, fucking hell, I'm 40 odd years old. What's going on here? Because when I was in the music industry and I'm in my early 20s and I'm DJing, that made more sense, right? Status or whatever. You're up DJing, people enjoying themselves, they're partying, etc. But then it's kind of weird to see that level of female attraction. And what guys don't forget about or don't realize is that it goes back to that point of, you got, say, between 35 and 55 to really make things work for you. But because you always thought about the other biological timeline, if you've been with a partner and you're working with that time zone of the safety area of having children, you don't realize is that I've got guys around me that's like, I don't have a Men Plus 40 program, but I help a lot of men around me. One of my guys is flying, right? He's in therapy. He's dealt with his codependency stuff. He's been run through the ringer, right? And now he has lots of women asking him out. But he's done the work. He's in tremendous shape. Do you see what I mean? And guys listening now, they go, yeah, but I don't think I can do it. You can. You can. And it's the early feedback that's really helpful as well. You walk into work, or you go into the building site, you go into the office, clothes fit a bit better. You're looking good. Your confidence is up. How you walk along, not putting your chest out or anything, but how you present yourself, right? People can see your confidence. I think Jocko Willink was talking about this on the podcast. I'm going to paraphrase here. He said, when people, predators, meaning guys, whether they're going to mug people or whatever, they're looking for people like kind of hunched over, lacking confidence and stuff like that. That because it's the predator-prey thing. As awful as it is, you don't want to be the prey, right? So there's two sides. You're either going to leave you alone, right? Because they go, I'm not going to fuck around with him. He looks like he can take care of himself. Do you know what I mean? That puts a boundary in place. Obviously, you get idiots down the pub who wants to fight everyone and anyone. Go, oh, look at him, he's got a muscle top on, or he's got fitted clothes on. Who the fuck does he? You get all that nonsense as well, and you just walk away. But you really start to see the feedback. You don't see it in the early days until really, give it 6 to 8 months, And once you've got your food right and you've got your exercise right, you go, right, I've got, not tired all the time. I've got plenty of time on me. What do I do now? Do you know what? Do a bit of training. I'm going to start a business, or really like the idea of that. I'm going to do you understand? And the best way to get started on a small business is find something you enjoy doing. Let's say you may be good at writing. So you might go onto a website and do some copywriting. And now with ChatGPT and stuff out there at the moment, there's so much things that you can do. It's just trying to design what would you want to do next. So this is why I say baby steps. You don't have to do it all at once. But that discipline of training every day, that discipline of eating right, then you see the rewards later. Because you don't train, look in the mirror. You go in the mirror and you go, fuck all. Next week, fuck all. Week after next, fuck all. Week after next, week after next, week after nothing. Then month 3, you're going, wow, weight's coming down. You know, love handles are coming off a bit. Chest is shaping a little bit. Get to 6 months. Right, muscle seems to be defining. I can see a little vein here. Do you understand? And then you get to that point where that feedback there, your body feedback to the work that you're putting in, raises your confidence. But you remember, we just started with 1 pull-up, a little bit of chicken and broccoli. Do you see where I'm going here?
Yeah.
Don't focus on the end goal.
Like, I'm a massive component of that. You know, I always, like, I want my tagline to be 1% better in an area of your life every day, because as you start like looking at your life and, you know, like gauging my relationships, my whatever it is, you know, my health, my work, etc., people see where they're losing their energy leaks, and they go, right, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and they come out with 50 different things they're going to do in each area, and then they give up after 3 days because they've taken on far too much. They're tired after the first workout because they've gone balls to the wall. Then they come back and go, oh, I'm just going to have a cheap meal because I'm going out for a pint. So they lose it. They have no willpower because they've not made subtle changes, you know, like you're saying, like 1%, 1%. And that's what I say to anybody is start small, you know, start with a body weight thing. You know, I mean, I've done that pull-up thing I do a pull-up every time I walk through the door. So when I was cleaning the flat, I'd go, all right, just a quick pull-up. And before you know it, you've done maybe 30 or 40 a day. And, you know, you're not pushing yourself. And then you're suddenly like, oh, you know, if you can't afford weights, do some press ups. There's always something you can start doing. I mean, this, like, I probably should say, this is for advice for everybody who's over 40. Yeah. This isn't just for guys who've had a divorce or something.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
I think I mentioned, you know, people who have hit rock bottom a few times, but I always say to them, it's like, you know, you define what you want in life. You pick your goals and stuff, but you can start improving them. And this is why I'm surprised you haven't got a program, because I know your stuff helps people. You know, you said we should always be looking to raise our value as a man. So regardless of what situation they are, how do we start raising our value? How do we not look at 40 as a doomsday scenario, but instead look at it as this is the season in your life where you have the most resources, and this is the season where I can truly become who I'm meant to be as a man, and look at it as a positive thing?
Yeah, so raising your value, there's a lot to break out there. When I say raising your value, first you've got to start asking yourself the questions, right? You know, we hear this term, what do you bring to the table? Ignore all that. The point of raising your value is, if we look, the difference between, you know, they'll say, you know, men are loved on condition, women, children, pets are loved unconditionally, etc. So what a guy brings to the table is they do something of any kind, right? So they create their value by doing things, whether that's a good job, you know, it's a status thing, it's the car, you know, there's all of these elements. They've got to be kind, compassionate, and everything else. But one of our purposes on this earth is to do something of value. So then what are your assets? So you sit down and go, what do I bring to the table to yourself? And people don't always understand, but it's not just how much you earn and the house that you live in, because your house isn't actually an asset if you're living in it. It's a liability because you live in the house. right? So the first thing, we all need a roof over our head, right? So you check that box, whether you own it or not. But ultimately what it comes down to is what value do you bring? Like, so you build resources. Your resources are your network as well. So let's say you've got a network of people in business and you know you can make a phone call and get things taken care of. That's very valuable, right? You have a good job or good business and you earn well enough to take care of a family. That's a resource that has value, right? You got friends that can rely on you to get stuff done, take care of things, and vice versa. These are all values, right? It doesn't necessarily always have to be the status thing, right? Because I know, like, no one wants to be at the bottom of the food chain in society. It's not good for serotonin either. But we've got to look at and take an honest appraisal of ourselves and say, what do we contribute, to ourselves, to your friends, your family, and society as a whole. That's where you start with everything, I know people talk about high value men, low value men, high value women. Don't worry too much on the play of words of the value aspect. Think of it as everything I do, whatever I do, I want to build as many resources as possible. And your resources, again, is your your network of people. That's a great resource because they can open doors for stuff and you can open doors for them. So it's really sit down and say, what do I have? Like, if we talk about fathers who live in the flat, their value is they're bringing as well is raising their children if they've got children. So what value do they bring? I want to be the best father possible to my children to give them a good structure within society. Yeah. Or you might own a business and you're employing people. You've got that responsibility. You add value to their lives by paying their wages. Yeah. So that they can take care of their families. So you should always be looking to improve yourself rather than go backwards. Goes back to my point, 1% every day, 3,800%. But did you know if you went backwards every day for a year, your value drops by 97%? Do you understand what I'm saying? You're going, if you flip it back and forward.
I mean, that's something I definitely find with guys. It's like, I'm going to go out and make new friends. I'm going to do this and go out and meet girls and stuff. And I'm just like, before you even start that, look at some like hard and soft skills you can fix. Look at some of like the habits you can fix in your own life, like get better sleep, better nutrition. It's like, there's so much, like you were saying earlier, about controlling your emotions. That might make you have a better relationship with your partner because you're not flying off the handle at the kids and stuff. Like it could be, you could become more empathetic towards people that you work with, or like for me, say the students I deal with, I could understand them on a deeper level. So I could actually see where they're coming from to fix the problems. There's so many things you can do, like to become more accountability, like I'm going to mark on the calendar when I'm working out. I'm not going to stand for any excuses. I'm going to do my workout, 5-minute workout a day. I'm going to put an X on the calendar. And before you know it, you've done 30 days because you see that chain and you don't want to break the chain marked on the calendar. There's things like, how would you start with somebody to start controlling their emotions, to show accountability in their life, to get their own life in control before they start thinking external, do the intrinsic work that needs to be done before we start caring about status and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think the first thing you've got to look at is your childhood. Most of your programming will come from your childhood. So you are going to develop from, say, from 0 to 8 years old, right? So you're very malleable at that time. So all the influences around you is going to go into your programming. So let's just say that you was raised in a chaotic environment. You may find later in life you thrive in more chaotic environments. You might find that in order to feel loved, there has to be chaos. So you might be the savior that wants to go and rescue that person that's got a lot going on. And then you'll find that you'll disown or you'll abandon your own needs for that person. You know, going back to that guy that you mentioned earlier on, as soon as you were talking about that, first thing I'm thinking is attachment issues and attachment style. So he locks into that person and he lives his life through that person. So what there is a level of lack of boundaries to a certain degree, because he's not individuated. As soon as he gets into a relationship, it sounds like it's an enmeshment, because he abandons himself and goes into the relationship. And there's a level of love that he needs that maintains him in the relationship. And when the relationship is over, he's back out, he's on the phone. He's like, how you doing, boys? When we come back round again, because he hasn't fully individuated. He abandoned himself and his needs in that relationship. It's like when you talk about my other half. Well, they're not the other half because you're a whole. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
So you go into relationships as two wholes, and in that relationship, both parties have their needs met. It's reciprocity that maintains a long-term relationship. Because if there's a disbalance in power in the relationship, one's happy, one's miserable often, or they both end up miserable. So there's a lot to unpick there.
Yeah, because when a lot of people, it's because they change, you know, like like that guy would go into a relationship and he would become this version of himself, and girls are attracted to you at a certain level. They don't want you to change and suddenly become a lapdog or become like following them around, lose all your hobbies and stuff. You know, they're attracted to the person that you are at the time. And I think I see a lot of guys suddenly, they just give up responsibility to somebody else. They let their boss tell them what to do. They tell the partner, tell them what to do. You know, pick up the kids and stuff.
Yeah, basically, if you turn yourself, not she, if you turn yourself into one of the children, you're going to kill any genuine burning desire. That's when you get dead bedrooms. But going back to your point, we all do it. I've done it. We all do it, and our partners will get complacent. Pretty much everyone does. So all this stuff that you did to win her, that all stops. All the stuff she did to win you over stops. So then marriage goes through phases, yeah? So people get bored sometimes in the relationship. Attraction can go. Sometimes the attraction comes back. So if you look at statistics, over 50% of marriages fail. 75% of second marriages fail, right? So marriage isn't like a Disney fantasy. Maybe for the first 6 months when the oxytocin is sky high for both parties, right? You're going at it like rabbits. But what is with a marriage is a constant investment that comes from both parties, right? So if one only tries in the marriage, then the marriage becomes a zero-sum game, and where there's only one winner and the other one becomes a loser, right? And I've learned a lot through this stuff, because whilst I don't have any letters after my name, I've had a front row seat to 5 marriages and divorces, my mum's. I've been with my wife 28 years. We've been married 22. We've lost 2 children. We've gone broke. 2 rounds of marriage counselling. Separated for a short period on a couple of occasions. And even got to the point where we went down the road of divorce and legalities and looking at mediation, right? So marriage, you know, is hard. And unless there's intimacy, reciprocity, respect and boundaries, it's never going to be fulfilling. And like 2 of the biggest curses of marriages is that pent up resentment, right? And often lack of money. So resentment is built up over the years. You see the couples like, you did this, you did that, and they backsnap at each other. And it's constant, like, dig away, dig away, dig away. Have you seen it, haven't you? You've gone out with friends and you watched that unfold. That is toxic. That is so damaging. I actually remember when I was at marriage counselling, first round, 2015, we did it twice. And I was saying that this is my wife. I love her. I don't want all this, you know, you did this and bring that up from the past and you did this. And I want that to stop. And the lady turned around and said to me, but that's normal in long-term relationships. And I said, if that's normal and that's marriage, fuck marriage, you can have it back. Because I won't do that. I'm not going to sit there and pick away at my wife at her self-esteem. And I'm not going to put up with it either the other way. Just because it happens in marriage and you're a marriage counsellor, you think that's good. What's good about digging and poking away at someone that you love? It's terrible. Do you know what I mean? And we don't, to this
definitely.
day, we've had like things that'll go up and down and things, but generally that's our combined rule between us. Like that doesn't happen. Like I'm not going down that path. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't want to do that to the woman that I love, who birthed my children. Do you know what I mean?
But you see that, don't you? It's like guys who suddenly treat a partner like shit, and you're thinking there was obviously a spark, an attraction that led you together, and you know, like the I don't like the terminology, but you should treat your partner like a queen. It should be somebody that you want to wake up to and you want to do things. I mean, I don't know if you know how unique you are, because for somebody to go through that level of grief, to go through that problem, but to be open and vulnerable about it, and to actually then help guys with that, that's so unique in today's society where we're taught you have to be tough, you have to solve your own shit, and you know then you get guys who are telling everybody go and pick up women, they're garbage, you know, and then suddenly other guys are going, no, you can be like this. And we need more guys like you who are saying, and especially people who are maybe at a low ebb in life, especially 40s, where there's a lot of guys committing suicide. You know, cause
that terrifies me. I want to normalize sorting out your bullshit. I want you to go and do the child work. I want you to do all those things. Fuck what the boys say. Fuck the brotherhood. If they tell you, go and do this course. Don't go to get your CPTSD sorted and your flashbacks and your childhood trauma and the problem, because you can't function in society. Your brothers are there to support you and with positive masculinity. They take care of your friend. I agree that you can't sit there and wail and roll around the floor crying in front of your partner all the time. Get that. There's a time and a place to be vulnerable. Yeah. There's a time and a place to understand emotional literacy. And it doesn't make you weak to sort your own bullshit out.
Oh, definitely not. I
mean, it doesn't. And that's the problem we have, right? Because there's a lot of guys running around, you know, who are promoting masculinity, never had a fight in their life. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't run around, I'm 200 pounds, I can fight, yeah? I've been fighting since I was a kid on the council estate. But it doesn't mean I'm going to go around and bully people. What I do is I don't put up with that shit from anyone, right? Because I believe people hold down their own power. But if you bully or pick on anyone around me, including women, you'll get to see the side of me that you don't want to see. But I'm cool, I'm calm and collected. Men need to have teeth as well. But I don't like bullies, and I don't like men being disrespectful to women either.
Yeah. And I think that's a big problem now is people think, oh, to become a man, I've got to rule with an iron fist. I've got to be seen as the alpha, you know, and it's like, I want to beat up whoever said alpha first. You have to be an alpha male, because even in wolves, it's not really true, you know, and that's what I find so irritating. It's like, it's such a sign of strength to go to somebody and say, I feel suicidal, or depressed, or I need this, or to go and say to your wife, can we talk to somebody? We were having an issue. And, you know, and then she's probably feeling the exact same way. And like, oh, brilliant. Or, you know, or you want to step aside and say, I want a better connection with my kids, so I'm going to go do stuff for them. I want to be a bit more accountable in my life. These are amazing things to do. And a lot of these small things can have such a, like you were saying, a compound interest into what you do in life. And I mean, I did jiu-jitsu, currently training, blue belt, you know, and you're taught basic things where you can strangle out the majority of people, control majority of people, but you start feeling this inner confidence, the self-belief. You never want to use it, but you know it's there if you need it. I mean, I know you're a big fan.
Yeah, exactly. It's there to use for the right time and not your ego. It's not there for you to flex your ego because, sorry, I cut you off there. I was going to talk about boxing in a minute, which is what's amazing about boxing. And I want every child, boy, man, I don't care, get in the boxing ring. Not necessarily the ring, but go to the boxing club. We talk about role models for masculinity. Are there going to be dicks out there? Of course. But you can learn so much about yourself and life by going to the boxing gym. So let's say you're kids, right? You're young. 2 types of people go to the boxing gym, generally. Or 3. People want to stay out of trouble. Kids that are getting bullied or the bully. Yeah, so let's break it down. You've got the bully and the bullied. So the bully walks into the gym. That bully will get his ass handed to him and he's going to run away and cry like a little baby, or it makes him a better man. The guy that used to get beaten up will learn to protect himself and will not tolerate any bullshit from anyone. Why? Because he carries himself better. He's still calm. He doesn't plan to use any of it, but he's confident. And so when the bully's in the playground and the school, I know everyone's doing it all on WhatsApp now, they look him in the eye. Because men can see, when you look a man in the eye, you know where that man's been. And they don't want it. They don't want that smoke. Do you see what I mean? And it's the same with kids as well. So by going to the gym, what can you learn? You can learn positive masculinity. You're going to have a coach. Generally, the coaches there are amazing men, right? They're going to help you get to reach and push your limits. They'll pull you back if you're drowning, so they may not put you in for sparring, etc. But they're going to help you define yourself and confidence. It'll teach you about honor. It'll teach you your limits. It'll teach you to know where your place is. All men need to be checked. All men need to be put in their place some point when they get above their stations. When you look at most boxers, they'll tell you, it saved my life. It's very much a working class sport. It's saved people's lives. It's helped with mental health. It's helped with masculinity by being around positive people. The bullies that normally come out of there actually restructured themselves. The guys that were getting, in trouble with police and stuff like that because they were bored on their council estate are too focused on their training now. They're enjoying the training. They know the difference between the two and they go, I can get out here. They build discipline. They're taking care of their body. They're taking care of their mind. This all feeds into mental health. There's so many positive things that come out of that. And 99%, 97% say of boxers will never have a street fight because they know how dangerous it will be if they did for the other person.
Yeah.
For the other person. Do you understand? Because 80% of the planet can't fight.
And you also have that lack of ego, because you can take care of yourself. So you think,
yeah,
you're more likely to go, look, mate, leave it, And I think that's a big thing here is it's like how many guys are listening going, but, these are friends I've had for life. And it's like, yeah, go get some better friends. Go to meet-up groups. Take up a sport where you're taught self-respect. But yeah, it's almost like self-love for yourself. You understand that you don't need to scrap to prove you're a tough guy. You don't need to go and start a fight because that's the masculine thing to, like that guy I was talking about earlier. I remember him saying, or somebody bitched about him on Facebook, and he goes, you need to come back to them because it shows you, that you're like in control, it's a dominant thing.
I thought, you block them, move on.
And I just thought, why would you waste your energy?
Yeah.
Rather doing that than sitting there going, fuck off, grow up. And there's like, I always say to guys, create, not consume. Go out and take up a pottery class. Go and do something that you want to do. Look at your life. What did you want to do as a kid? I want to learn to cook. Go and cook. You'll meet people there who have the same interests in you, who will become friends, and like I say, jiu-jitsu for me, it's changed my life. Met friends that would never have met before. Same with you with boxing. People who are in trouble, it gives them a focus. And, if you want to go to the gym, fine. If you want to go to boxing, fine. If you want to do, volleyball or something, do what makes you happy. And then you start getting that self-respect. And it's the way you hold yourself. And then you find that spark again that I think a lot of guys lose at 40. And then you start thinking, girls notice it, or your wife notices it, your kids notice it, and it's like you start building a connection, and it's little by little you start speaking to people. And like I find that with this, like people go, how can you talk to people for an hour? Easy. You are interested in them. But I get so much from this because they light a spark of me in something else. And then that leads into another thing. That leads to another thing. And, it's 40 isn't anywhere close to death, but I think that's when you realize you're finite. I don't even know how to pronounce the word properly, but you get to that point where you realize it's like
you're not infallible, and you're on the second leg, right?
Yeah.
Regardless if we have an advancement in technology, you might get a squeeze out of an extra 15 years, right? Through new technology. I'm 47. 10 years time, there might be something that prolongs life to a certain age, right? So we now know that everything we do really matters. And do you know what? Your most precious thing isn't money, isn't your house, isn't your car, isn't your watch. It's your time.
Definitely.
It's learning to use your time right. And who you give your time and attention to. You value your time.
It's time for a quick break. There are millions of potential products to buy, so how do you know which ones are worth your hard-earned money? Simple. You go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and explore those that will transform and improve your life. You'll find deals, listener exclusives, and special offers with some great companies. Recommendations are 100% honest and only on items Ian has tried or believes in. The companies showcased will make you a better man in all areas of your life. Simply go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and level up.
There was it Rob Kelly? I think it was Dr. Rob Kelly, and he was saying, I can look at you and the 5 people you hang, they say you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with. And he was saying, I can look at you and your friends, and just by your friends, I know the level of belief you have in yourself. I know the level of what you're going to achieve. Like you said, it's like, you've got $1 million mind, but a lot of guys have 2-cent friends. And he said, why not get rid of them and find guys that you actually want to hang around with, who, like, there's a lot of guys who come in and give you a hug and, oh, let's go do this. Or, are you okay? You're a bit down, and, let's go to the gym. They want to see you succeed. They want to push you up. Why waste time? Like, we've only got such a small amount of time in this world to make a difference. Create, give something back, volunteer, go and do a new hobby, rather than sit at 80. And I've had a lot of regret in my life. It's one of the worst feelings in the world. You never want to get to a point where you're on your deathbed and go, fuck. Get a bucket list. I want to go to see Paris. Fine, go do it. There's ways to do it if you've got low finances. Oh, I want to get in shape. Now is 40 plus, perfect time to go do it. I want to have a better relationship with my kids. Brilliant. Pick what you want in life, not what other people. And that spark is hell of attractive, but it's also hell of good for self-love, for accepting yourself. What do you find for guys who come to you and say, I did X, I stabbed somebody, I did whatever, like really, stuff that's maybe not societal accepted, and they want to start again, second chances, especially for guys who've come out of prison, or, one of the guys I interviewed, he was like, how we're treated as a number in prison. So he said when he came out, suddenly getting out of that mindset, you're not a number, you're a person. And he said, just having somebody write a CV for guys in prison, they suddenly realized that they are valued, that somebody does care, and it changed their whole outlook. How do we start getting guys who need a second chance to stop looking at the past, stop fantasizing about the future, but live in the present to improve themselves and actually make the 40s that turning point?
Well, one of my friends from school went away for armed robbery, and he's gone back into doing music, doing drum and bass. I haven't seen him for a while, but he went down look, I got off the council state because I was either going to be dead in prison like half my mates, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say anything is a win. Like I won at life because I would have been a statistic, as you would expect. Left school, could read and write properly. Yeah. On a council state, been arrested, car stereos, all that kind of stuff. Then got into the rave scene and like shitty jobs, all of these different things. I've never been to prison, which I'm pleased about, but there are good men in prison and people can reform.
Mm-hmm.
But it's harder when they've got a criminal record to get to next level. I don't know enough about the area of post-release. I know there's not a great support mechanism, but I would definitely say, look, go and do some therapy work. Go and learn about emotional literacy. Go and do work around your behaviours. Because if you think you're in prison, you're always watching your back, okay? Prison life's going to be tough. Your cortisol is going to be high. So you might spend all your time in flight mode all the time. Yeah. And then what you're going to be is you're going to be like hypersensitive to your surroundings. So I'd definitely start with how do I get peace of mind? Well, then go through a framework where whether it's through therapy and work through all the stuff that you can start to heal on those areas, because you're going to need to heal first before you get in the job. You want to get out of your environment. Yeah. You don't want to go back to your old environment where it picks up the bad habits. Yeah. No one can heal in a toxic environment, whether that's in prison, back on the estate or whatever. You want to need a clean break and don't go back. So they're going to be key things. Then the tricky one is, well, it's hard to normally, depend on your record. And I don't know where that stands with, because I don't know enough about with Companies House, whether you can own a business. But you could get back into owning the business. Let's be honest. Some of the people on the street that are dealing gear and stuff, they know their numbers, or they couldn't do what they do, right? So they've got that kind of hustler's mind. Yeah. So then, how do we get them to take that hustler's mindset and put it onto a legal business that they can own and it's theirs? And they feel they can take pride in that, It's a tough one, but I think first you get your mind right. First you accept it doesn't matter what people think, because it's your life. You've got to live in your shoes. It's okay for you guys to turn around and say, no, just get to the gym, and the gym's not going to be enough. The gym doesn't fix your CPTSD. It doesn't fix your attachment styles. It doesn't fix rumination and all those different things of if you go and reflect on your life. So definitely I would look at that area first. Is like, where do you want to improve? Do you have anger problems? Cool. Go online, download some worksheets, go and do some emotional literacy. Understand how that works, why you feel like that. Yeah. Because a lot of people are put off by it because they're going, I can't do that. I'm a masculine guy. But then they'll sit there riddled with CPTSD, living a miserable life and not be able to operate properly in society. So we have to normalize that part for sure. But post that, I'm not sure where it stands, but a lot of these guys, hustlers, will make good businessmen if they use their integrity, but the hustler's mentality of the grind of doing the work. Does that make sense? Definitely. So a translation of skills, but in a positive sense.
Because, I've had depression. I've had to take tablets for it. I've had seasonal affliction disorder, which probably was the same thing with the depression. Like since the dark nights come in, I can go a bit kind of down in the dumps. But I know that, so I work on it. I've had classified with OCD, like obsessive compulsive disorder. And it's like, yeah, great. So I know what my triggers are and I work on it. So when I see somebody who comes and starts throwing punches, there's usually something you can see behind that. Like you're saying, that there's a pinpoint, a reason that fuels that. Maybe it's self-hatred, it's an inner critic. And that's what I say to guys, is like, if you don't want to speak to somebody, look at cognitive behavior therapy, look at neuro-linguistic programming. If you can't afford it, Google it. There's free worksheets, like you're saying. Yeah. But there's go and get a free library card, and you can buy books. You can get books rented on it. You can get DVDs on it, and it'll be things like, like, what's your trigger points? Okay, well, this is why this is happening. You're maybe like, say the big thing everybody thinks OCD is like hand washing. because of the contamination, and it teaches you about exposure therapy. There's ways you can go and treat your mental health stuff, and like we were saying earlier, it's not a weakness; it's a massive sign to go. I'm fed up of this. I don't want to regulate with drink and drugs anymore. I want to go and learn how to fix this and deal with it. But how have you seen mental health change in the last 10 to 20 years?
Huge amount. It's like what concerns me the most, right? I've been through a lot of stuff. You've been through a lot of stuff. People have had incredibly tougher than you and I, right? So we're blessed. I always look on that side of things, no matter what's gone on, losing 2 children, all those kind of things. There is always someone who's going to be worse off, right? So when we look at the last 10, 20, maybe 30 years, and we look at the rise in self-deletion of men, I'm looking at it and going, well, hold on a minute. My granddad, we went to war, took a shell, come home alive to his family, broke his back, hard work, working on the docks after. And what he went through, as an example, and they never had any of that support. But now we're smothered in support. It's everywhere. If you reach and go online, there's always, whether that's a YouTube video to help you with mental health fortress, whatever, if you do a search, right? There's so much available. We live in the safest times on record that's ever been recorded. The problem is, because the world's fully connected now, the news only wants to give you the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Because our news isn't filled with all the good stuff. It's all the negative stuff, which gets perpetuated. So we get the impression that we're living in a, tough times. We are, there's a recession kind of kicking in and people are struggling. I'm not denying that whatsoever. But we, as men, we've got to realize is that we have gone soft. We've got too much convenience. We've had too much protection. We've had too much of, when we're younger, depends on your childhood, right? It's going to differ. But you may have been raised where you come 6 in the egg and spoon race and you got a trophy. You may have been like where you didn't ever have to do a job you didn't want to do. You may have been like you got a cold so you didn't go to school. You might have been like your mum still makes you lunch until you're 15, 16 years old. And all of those things play into those patterns. Yeah. And I think what sets men up is they require a series of challenges to get over those challenges, to feel a sense of reward for getting over those challenges. And then more challenges come and more, and it toughens them and toughens them and but they've got to be built into it, right? So what concerns me is we've got all this mental health care. We're getting more and more and more and more and more of it, yet the numbers are going up. I mean, how do we regulate that? I have no idea. But I think a lot of it comes down to, which is right, I've got no letters after my name. A lot of mental health care is very tippy-tappy, very light touch, very this. And on the flip side, people like me and other people may need, listen, mate, sort your fucking life out. Let's get you in there. Don't worry about what everyone thinks. Who cares what the alphas and it? Fuck them. Get yourself sorted. I'm letting you know it's cool. It's fine. Maybe it's that voice that reaches the kids on the council estate. Do you understand? Because not everyone's the same. Not everyone can be communicated the same. So my concern is, why are the numbers going up? And it's easy to go and blame and point fingers. I don't know why the numbers are going up when we've got all this care. I think it's just not it's not landing. It doesn't hit and resonate with certain types of people. Do you understand? And I think maybe that's where it is as well. And the fact that we've got mobile phones, we can order food on, everything's so convenient now. And maybe also because everyone talks about mental health, everyone then runs to the default now. Yes, my mental health. I'm going through my healing. And there's that side of maybe there are some people that don't have it as bad as other people, but it's easier to go, it's my mental health. Do you know what I mean? Like a cop-out. But there's people that really have problems with mental. But you can't diagnose that because you can't tell that and say that to people. It's very disrespectful, right? But there's going to be people that will also have a victim mentality against the ones that really need the help, and they're doing it for attention. Who knows? I can't give you the full answer.
Yeah, that was something I was want to go into. Was like when I started it, I went there, and the first, like, our kind of healing modality for that is here, take some antidepressants, and you're like,
Yeah.
Okay. So I tried that, and I was sitting there. Okay, I would try talk therapy, and I found I was just talking it up in my head. I wasn't actually dealing. But the second I took personal responsibility and said,
That's it.
I'm going to change this. I'm going to get a new job, or I'm going to move to a new city, which is completely like the first time I feel like I've had a life in a city.
Yeah.
And that was like, I think it's like, yes, these things are great, but we need to say to guys as well, yes, but you need to make a change. You can't let other people dictate it and control it. That's again giving your, I don't like the phrase, but giving the power away. You need to say, okay, this is what I want from life. I'm going to use these as a tool to help me get better and to keep me focused. I mean, back in the day, you were called thick if you had dyslexia. You know, it was just accepted. Nowadays,
I was called thick
dyslexia.
at school. I was thick, yeah.
And now people go, oh, he's got dyslexia. Oh, cool. So there's fantastic advances there. But now we've gone too far the other way. And I've got a friend who works in a school. She said before in the day, you would have maybe 2 kids in the entire school who would need extra support, who'd have like these support workers. Now there's something like 80% in some schools who have all got ADHD, who have got such and such a syndrome, where you would say, is it, or is it because they've never had to take responsibility? And it's a dangerous topic to go into because you try not to avoid anybody.
Yeah. Like my goal is to get people to take care of themselves and deal with whatever they need to deal with. And healing is a self road that no one can do for you. You have to do the work yourself. And once you take ownership and then you do the work, you come out the other end and your life gets better.
I mean, it's the best thing I ever did.
It is. But some people, you have to find a way of communicating. So go back to, I know that you mentioned Andrew Tate, you know, on one side, forgetting all the other stuff he talks about, he has on a mental health level got to, regardless of what he said on one side, there are elements where because of his communications, he's literally gone to people, get in the gym, sort your, and people have not. So we skip all what he says on the other side.
Yeah.
But there is elements in there that in his message that actually work into a certain group of people that are getting in the gym. He found a way to communicate that. But I think what he said with other stuff is where he's going to be held accountable for that kind of thing, right? So some people, this is the thing, that some people will only resonate with certain types of people. Like when I talk about mental health, maybe someone who, maybe say like a upper class family, you know, probably I would not resonate. Do you see what I mean? But the kid on the council estate, or a guy my age who's you know, been on the council estate, lived in the council house and stuff like that, might be able to resonate with me because I've turned around and said, look, fuck it, don't worry about it, get your shit sorted. And then it's like, oh, okay. It isn't, do you understand? There's nuances there, and it's going to take everyone to do their bit.
Because I remember when I had really bad depression, I can remember not going outside for a couple, you know, because I could work, I could do like a weekends. I would come home on a Friday night and I would barely go out the flat again till Sunday. I would buy what I needed because I was, at the time, I was living in a place I hated. I was terrified of like going into college and stuff like that, because I would go in and do the classes and go home. And I regret that because at the time I never had that life. But I also then had the time when I went on depression, they gave me antidepressants. And I can remember sitting there, and after that initial wave of feeling good, you sit there and go, what now? You realize you need to then step up. And then I needed to make that step to change it. And that changed my life. And that's why I'll say to people, it's like, use these things, have a great time, you know, like go in and speak to somebody and all that, but don't just sit and think about it. Go and deal with it. And you have that, like that personal accountability. And suddenly that one change here, tidy up your house a bit. Okay, cool. Okay, maybe speak to that cashier if you've got a bit of social anxiety. Just like, how's your day going? All right, you don't need to have a thing. And I always say to people, have treat everybody the same. CEO, janitor, cashier, whatever, does not matter. And it changes their day. They put a smile on their face, and that knock-on effect. And it doesn't need to be anything big. And before you know it, you're suddenly getting the confidence. I'm going to go approach that girl. I'm going to start a business I wanted. To think of what I used to be like and what I'm now like, and the job I'm in, earning over 30 odd grand, and I'm like, oh, I would never imagine that. Oh, I would have never imagined I would have bought a flat. Oh, I never imagined I've done that. I'm not boasting, but these are things that when I look back then, I would have laughed you silly if you had said I would have done these things. But you need to go that first step. But suddenly, I turned 40, felt terrible, and I contemplate going back on the tablets. And then I took them for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, and I didn't feel like they were changing anything. And that's when I realized I need to change my life. They're just hiding the feelings. They're hiding they're masking the true issue you need to deal with. And like you're saying, you need somebody that comes to you and say, let's go and do this, or let's take up boxing. And you don't know what they've transformed their life in 6 weeks, and it's difficult. We don't have that people. And that's why I'm glad there's people on Instagram and that who are doing it like you, who are giving people these kind of, think about it. Let that message of the video sink in. Okay, cool. And then before they know it, they're thinking about it and they maybe act a bit different. They treat their, they maybe go up to their wife and say, oh, let's go for a date night. Let's do some with the kids rather than go for a pint. And they go, oh, before they know it, their kid enjoys it and they have a better connection. And a couple of weeks down the line, changes their life. In addition to this, are there health checks you've noticed for guys, that are coming up to that thing? What about financial planning? How do you take responsibility, not just for you, for your family, for your life? Do you look at I think they said somewhere that the majority of people don't have a male best friend. Majority of people don't have a pension, barely have £1,000 in savings. There's a lot of people
less than £5,000 in savings.
It's terrifying. I mean, I did that when I was younger, but I had parents who kind of pushed that on us. That you need to take responsibility.
Yeah.
How do we, if you're a guy who's coming into this, they've maybe got a partner, maybe don't, but they're getting to that age. What would you advise people to start doing to plan for their future, plan for their health, their cholesterol? Because if you're going to start eating better and go to the gym and stuff like that, they probably should find out if they're okay health-wise. But we should also look at how are you financially? How are you work-wise? How are you, for thinking, I remember my mother, she set a file up with all the paperwork for their car, all the stuff for the house. So if anything ever happened, we know it's all in that file. And I remember thinking, fuck, because it suddenly hit home that my parents were getting to that age that I could lose them in 10, 20, 30, whatever years. But in your head, how many guys haven't got any plans for the future? They're living day to day, not realizing this.
It's not just guys. Most people don't have a plan for the future.
No.
I done my will 2 weeks ago. It's a bit freaky, but it'll be complex with owning two businesses, and understanding if the business got to be sold on or bought out. All those things had a layer of complexity when my wife and my daughter, and being hit with taxes when you sell the business, and what's the best structure, and then putting someone in charge. I've got two people in charge of my will. That's weird for me to do that because I'm 47. It's like, am I putting the mockers on myself? But I had to do it as a responsible adult because it could end up being a mess. And when you don't have a will, then and you've got business and you've got partnerships and stuff like that, it can become very complex and take forever. And the reality is, if I'm gone, we need to make sure the money's liquid for my family, because for them, they're not business owners, my wife and my daughter, and nor should they have the burden of trying to work all that stuff out. And the reality is that they're going to want access to the money to be put away to do with what they want to do with that money if the day were to come. Does that make sense? So you've got to take care of, depend on your age, but you take care of your will. You look at your savings, you look at, if you own a business, you look at the value of the assets of the business there. Bring in a financial planner. You know, there's plenty of people just go online and they'll decide, you know, be careful where you're reinvesting your money. I've got investments through the business as well. My partner is I've got an agency. We've got a technology company that looks after pay-per-click advertising for brands on Amazon. We build all our own technology, but we've started to invest a lot of reinvested profits from the business into the markets. Whereas I let him get on with that. It's not my world. I invest in people. But it depends on what your flavor is and what you want to do. You want to be looking at speaking to different financial planners, look at their financial instruments and make sure that they're not bending you over and there's all these different fees and you walk away with nothing. Yeah. So do some research on the market. Think about if the value of leveraging any properties that you own, you know, as your assets, not the ones that you live in them, and just try and set something up for the future. But unfortunately, you know, I think in the UK, there's maybe 12-13% are earning six figures and above of the country, right? So a lot of people are living on a tighter income. And I think we are now in that world where it's just pure consumerism. We've got so much credit and debt out there, and we're encouraged to spend. And money just gets printed endlessly, right? And I think as a whole, we have to take responsibility of that as well. You know, it's one thing to have some savings and the investments, but then you got to look at your debt, and you don't want to be leveraged in a load of debt. But we're encouraged in that. You know, we go to college, get in the debt, then go and get a good job. We're not telling people skip college and we're not saying to the school, teach more people to become entrepreneurs, to create more jobs, to create more people that can be self-contained themselves. Look at, you know, situations with COVID where people were either furloughed, they were laid off, or, you know, guys working on the building site. Some of them are just out there working through COVID, risking their lives, you know? And it's like, can we get to the stage where we can encourage people, more and more people, to start their own businesses, to have the hold over their finances so they're not going to get a payment from a third-party company where, you know, the days are gone of getting a carriage clock and a watch or whatever at the end when you're 60. You know, like, you can do as much time there as possible, but they're going to replace you at some point. So I want to encourage more men and women to start their own businesses. My 17-year-old daughter is a grafter. She's just saved $3,000 up to buy a car.
Awesome.
Bought it the other day. 17 years old. And I'm like, I need to get you to understand financial literacy, because you're selling your time at the moment. You need to not be selling your time, which is a day job. Yeah. And I said, you can make all the mistakes you want in the world because you've got the safety net of us. What most people do is they get sick of their job and then they decide to start a business when they're leveraged with responsibilities. And I'm like, by 25, you could be doing what you want to do. You'll fail a few times, but you're not paying the rent or anything. This is perfect. And I also wanted to know, because wherever I do leave, as we see, the second generation, third generation blow it all, right? So I need to understand the value of money as well. And if I can get her to understand, and she wants to do it, you know, not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur or a business owner. She means she'll respect whatever I leave behind for the next generation. You know, I want to break that generation. We're from East London. No one's had a pot to piss in and a window to throw it out of. I'd like to think that my children's grandchildren will be okay to a certain level, you know?
I mean, that's why I'll say people is like, you're just like your dad isn't always a compliment. You know, it's like, look at it as a sort of three.
My dad was an alcoholic.
Yeah, I mean, look at it as like
I'll
a three-pronged
times.
attack. Like, my dad is like very shy emotionally,
Right.
hard worker, very graphs and all that, but because his dad wasn't very good. And I don't know if you've seen those like pictures where it's like the granddad shouting at the dad, "You're worthless," and then the dad shouts at the kid, and then that kid says to his kid, like he puts a hand up to block it and says, I love you," and you're saying it's like, don't repeat generational like issues in the family. You can change anything. So use tools like talk therapy, antidepressants, and all that to deal with the drama from the bullshit. Put personal responsibility in, like wills, life insurance, and things like that in for the future. But live in the current. Have a great relationship with your kids. Try to fix yourself. Look to improve yourself. So I always think it's as a kind of 3-prong attack. And take responsibility, but use these tools that are there. We live in where you can pull out your phone and have the world of free, and there's heaps of free resources like Harvard and all these other places, and most people sit on TikTok and then they let social media, instead of becoming a learning experience, they use it to compare themselves and beat themselves up. Whereas you're judging your entire life against somebody's perfectly snapped picture. They've taken 30 times to get the right light, to get the right, we're judging ourselves. Kids are getting cyberbullied because they don't have the best trainers, or, they're not doing this and that. And that's life I want to change. I want to encourage people to realize a small change a day might not seem much. Before you know it, it changes everything. But how do we put like the boundaries in our life? How do we how do we like connect better with our partners, but put the boundaries in? Like, when is it time to end a relationship? When is it time to end a friendship? What do you look for? Is it just that they don't take personal responsibility, but what else would you look for as a red flag?
Well, there's obviously going to be lots of red flags. The quickest way of cleaning up your friend group is to hold people accountable. Sit them down, say, look, this is how I feel about stuff. Like we're on the same team, and I want you to come to me. And I've said this to my friends, and they do, and they'll hold me accountable. If I fuck up, I need you to be brutal. I need you to come to me. I need you to tell me the things I need to hear, not what I want to hear. And I always say to people, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, rather than what you want to hear, regardless of the impact on the relationship. If I have to lose you as a friend because I'm telling you you're fucking up and you're out of control, and you either get on top of it, because what people don't realize is that's a strength. Because most people that are fair weather friends won't tell you that. They'll just go, go along with stuff, because they're normally part of that pack, right? So what happens is your friend groups gets very small. Once it gets small, you got the perfect size, because the thing is, let's pretend there's a table there. Like, depending on where you are in life, the table starts small. Then you get a bit of success. The table turns into a banquet table. Then you fall off because it cycles. Not everyone stays up. That banquet table ends up being a small table again. They're the ones after that cycle is what you want. There's always going to be people hanging on. There's going to be around people for wrong reasons. But the quickest way of cleaning up your friend group is to hold people accountable and let them hold you accountable, and do it respectfully. You don't have to be rude, because the wrong people hate to be held accountable. It's like kryptonite to some people, and that'll clear them out of your life really quickly. You want to keep away narcissists where possible. Everyone runs around, calls everyone a narcissist now. There are 9 traits of NPD, and it has to be done by a clinician. And basically, you've got to meet 5 of the criterion. Sometimes that'll be comorbid, so it'll cross over, a bit of borderline personality disorder, histrionics, etc. And then you've got psychopathy, which is a smaller percentage of the population. A lot of those will be in prison, of course, but there are some high functioning ones. So effectively, if you don't know anything about narcissism or the spectrum of cluster B, then one of the biggest things to understand is you've got to be able to trust your gut. When something doesn't feel right, it's not right. And it depends how someone makes you feel. If you feel a bit weird around someone, If someone, it doesn't connect with you, there's something there. You can't ignore your gut. We'll go back to the saber-toothed tiger, and obviously cavemen, or whenever it was they're running around. You know, we've got this built into our biology. Use it, right? I say the same to women. It depends how someone makes you feel. If someone makes you feel like trash all the time, they're an energy vampire. Get rid of them. You don't need to know all the technical terms. You don't need to know about love bombing, discard, breadcrumbing, and all. You just need to know they're fucking wrong uns. Go no contact. Get rid of them.
Definitely.
Yeah. In a relationship, there is no point in being in a relationship, a love bond relationship, i.e. marriage, if there is no desire whatsoever. Because both parties will be fucking miserable. As hard as it sounds, do you want to be miserable for the rest of life? Because there'll be two people miserable. Because you're never going to measure up. You can't be in a relationship where there's no reciprocity. You can't be the one doing everything carrying the relationship and then nothing comes back the other way. Yeah? You've got to hold yourself to a level of value. It can be very tricky and complex to go through all these different things to try and understand. Yeah? But if you hold yourself accountable, you take care of yourself, you take care of your mind, your body, your soul, and your money, you don't have to stay where you're not valued. If you're not valued where you are, you move on and you find people that will value you. Because there will be people out there that value you.
I mean, that's a big thing I say is see people for who they are, not for who you want them to be.
Or what happens is people will show you who they are, and when they do, believe them. Just watch them. Don't take any notice of anyone's words. Watch their actions.
Because I see people saying like interview your coaches, like at the gym. You don't have to just take the first trainer they give you. Interview like the people that you're wanting to work for as much as going to a job interview. And I'm thinking, but how many people do that with their friend groups? How many people do that in their relationships? And, if somebody acts a certain way and you're not happy, they're not going to change. A lot of time, unless you're not going to change them, they have to feel it themselves. And yes, it might be horrible to become single again after a long-term relationship. But if you're not happy now and they're not willing to put the work in, sometimes it's safest to walk away. And
do you know the other thing you got to be careful as well? Self-awareness is so important because there's so many people out there who think the other problem in the relationship is the problem when really it's them because they lack the self-awareness to realize. Have you heard of the term reactive abuse? It's where someone would keep digging and pushing away at someone and that person explodes because they've had enough, because they're not going to put up with the nonsense. And then they'll go, see, told you. Like switching it back on you. Why you got such a problem done? But really, it's the other person, and the other person reacts. That's why it's called reactive abuse. It's very insidious. You have to be very careful of that as well. So being being as self-aware as possible. No one's 100% self-aware. There's always going to be stuff we miss. People will listen to this podcast and they'll pick holes on me and they'll go, he's insecure about that. Because they see things I don't see. Do you understand? And I know that. And the more you self-aware you are, and the more you understand who you are as an identity, yeah? Who are you? Work out who that is first, yeah? Then become self-aware of your own behaviors. Then you'll be able to model that by watching other people's behaviors. And then you'll get a better, clearer picture if you can live in an objective reality and then make better informed decisions off that, You might be unhappy in a relationship, but you're the cause of the unhappiness for both parties.
I love it because everybody else blames the other person. Nobody wants to say.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. Right. If you've had a string of jobs, right? You have a string of jobs, you get fired every 6 months. Whose fault is it really? If you can't last in a job. Do you understand? That's the thing. We go, okay, let's just say that you're in a relationship and you've been fucked over 6 times in relationships. 6 times. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, not 5, but 6 times. There's a pattern there. How do you stop that pattern? You heal the wounds, you find them, heal the wounds, and then you won't do that again. Do you understand? That's where the other thing is people that maybe are not conscious of what's going on, they're going to attract other people with wounds that go together like a glove. If you heal your wounds and you become neurotypical, more healthy, etc., in the middle of the spectrum, you're going to attract more people like you, not the old you. The new you will repel the other people if you were to draw in people of that nature, people that manipulate and stuff.
I love it. I mean, there's so many areas I want to go into, and I know they're like podcasts on their own. But I mean, you've had a living relationship for 28 years. You've gone down like into therapy. You've gone from broke to successful, created businesses,
and back
etc.
again. Yeah.
I mean, for people who are listening, okay, and going, brilliant, I'm going to start working on myself. I'm going to do, like you were saying, building up this and that. And they're in a relationship, they want to make better, they want to have a deeper connection with their partner. They're becoming aware, because we do become aware of like Joe's problem, John's problem, but we don't see our own problems. How do we start connecting with our partners? Like from a guy who's been with somebody for 28 years, you must have figured this out. How do we we're dealing with our drama ourselves internally, but how do we make our relationship stronger? How do we have that identity in a relationship, but our own? How do we keep the romance alive and avoid the dead bedroom? How do we just have a good relationship, basically?
All right. So this can be a tough area to navigate, right? Because it can be quite complex, because we're now dealing with an emotional versus logic plus a mixture of emotions, right? Mm-hmm. All of this has to be handled with care and kindness on your words, right? So let's start with, to have a functioning intimate relationship, there has to be attraction on both sides. Yeah? Otherwise, it's going to be a balance in there, right? You've also got to unpick if you've had years of resentment from the past that's built up in the relationship. Yeah? Another thing that some guys don't handle correctly is that you don't have the right to a woman's body, right? You're their partner and they're not your plaything, and not to be just picked up when you please, right? So I think the problem is as well is that intimacy starts outside of the bedroom. The lead up starts outside of the bedroom, right? But men are very visual and they're ready to go to drop a hat. So whereas most women need to build into it, you've seen it. The guy goes up to his wife, want a bit? And she's in the middle of doing something, all stressed out. Reality is, it's not going to happen. Yeah? And then he gets upset. He goes into his cave because he's just been rejected. So first thing is safety, right? So there's multiple layers, but the first three layers of safety for a woman is physical, mental, and emotional, right? There are more depending on the women, but they need to feel safe in order to open up and express themselves, right? Guys also forget sometimes as well, foreplay are words as well, not just physical foreplay. Foreplay is words. You lead up your text messages and stuff like that. You also got to remember that women have many types of orgasms, right? But only 20% or so of women orgasm through intercourse. And there's a variety of reasons, which I won't go into on this podcast because we start going down that road of sexual organs, and I'm just trying to keep it at top level as best as possible.
It's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, and in some cases, some women won't have any orgasms, right? Especially if they're in their head and in the body. We had the people will joke, I was running through the shopping list. The lady needs to feel herself by being in her body and not just in her head to be distracted, yeah? The other side is not all women want to be like it's a porn shoot, yeah? So slow it down and then move for the gears, because there are no loads of guys that like jackhammers, right? But slow it down, right? So what you want to be able to do is you need to be able to communicate, right? It's no fun for a woman if you're the only one who's getting off, okay? So all women are different and they have unique things to them that they enjoy. So you have to understand that. And then there's always, as they develop and grow, there are other things that will interest them as well. So this stuff will develop after time. I mean, you've seen why a lot of one-night stands end in disaster is because neither party's explored over time. They haven't had that. It's a bit awkward, you know. You might see it on the TV, it all looks like it comes together. But you see how clumsy these things can happen because they don't know each other. Do you know what I mean? They've had a few drinks and stuff like that. So in a long-term relationship, you get to find out what both want and you're able to communicate that, right?
Mm.
And as crazy as it sounds, are you clean? Right? It sounds bad to ask this, but presentation matters, right? Women notice everything from your fingernails, your odor, your breath, your skin, nose hair, everything. And those little subtleties can make a difference as well. So here comes the tough talk. Your partner may not be sleeping with you because you let yourself go, right? So whilst most women are looking for a connection, she still needs to find that you're attractive. So look in the mirror and discounting your aging over time. Are you out of shape? And I'm not talking about a six-pack here or turning yourself into a Greek god. But self-respect here should be your priority, right? So if you want respect, then that's going to start with the self. You have to understand that a woman can love you but not respect you. And if she doesn't respect you, then there's little chance of desire. Here's the worst thing that can happen, though. You spend a year getting yourself into shape, right? But the union doesn't work out. You've just leveled up. Now you're going to have more options. You will stand out to between 1 in 100 to 300 men in their 40s and 50s because they won't be in the shape as you. You also have to remember that there are no websites or magazines that women consume with plus-size men. There's no do you understand where I'm going from? They're not necessarily looking for that, right? So you're not got women sitting there saying, I must find myself an overweight, kind, compassionate man that takes care of me and his duties, right? They're not going to say that to be unkind, right? There's a difference between being cuddly, but then there's a difference between being completely out of proportion and having poor health markers, right? So if you look at evolutional psychology and the attraction cues, these are all generally markers of health. If you look at the works of David M. Buss, he'd done a book called The Evolution of Desire. And there's another book called Why Women Have Sex by Cindy Merton and David M. Buss. They trace back through evolution to the beginning of time to present day and then done these revisions through the book. The final part of that is, have you turned into one of the children? So your mother's love isn't what she's looking to have with you. Now, there's quite a lot of stuff I've gone through there, which can be kind of guys listening and going, "Ugh, I don't," it's hard to hear. But we all know men that, visually, we can stand to their attention and off we go to the races. But we have to consider our partners as well of their needs. So if you're in a long-term relationship and every week she's not getting what she wants from, the time that you're spending together in the bedroom, they're going to get bored, aren't they? They're not going to be as interested because it's one way. And sometimes what happens because of the lack of communication, a lady may think, I wish you knew how to do in their head. I wish you knew how to do this. You should be able to, they don't want to tell you because it kind of spoils it. But at the same time, if they don't tell you, they don't get what they want from it and then becomes a bit of a vicious circle. And then once you throw children in the mix, raising children, the tiredness, the washing, ironing, and anything that they're doing on that level as well, day job, whatever it may be, a woman needs to get into her body, and so she needs to feel relaxed to get into that zone. And I think maybe what happens is, because that's not communicated enough, the safety elements, the physical, the mental, and the emotional safety as well, or that a guy might only show attention at times of when they want sex. The rest of the time, they pretty much ignore their partner or don't pay them any compliments, take care of them, take them out for dinner, any of that stuff. And the only time they show attention is then. That becomes a problem as well. So I've kind of unloaded quite a lot of stuff there. But I think that's why we've got 50% of marriages with their bedrooms out there, because there's a lot of guys who don't understand half of what I've just said, that can play a role.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to remember men and women are different in biologically. We're equal across the board, but we complement each other. But our sexual attractions are differently. The way that we're programmed in that sense are different. And I think it probably takes a lot, because I think it's really unfair on guys when they get shamed. Oh, all you want is sex. All I hear about is I want da-da-da-da. If you turn around and said to a lady, oh my God, you're such a narcissist. Why do you need this attention? You know, that would be very cruel and disrespectful, because women need quality attention. They want to feel loved and cared for and stuff. So that shaming, it needs to stop, I think. I think that doesn't help anyone. And that's probably because generally guys' testosterone is 17 times that of a lady's. So their libido generally, not always, going to be higher than their partners. So it's trying to find that happy medium, respectful happy medium. I think the other thing that people have to bear in mind is charity sex, chore sex, using it as a tool, to get things. Yeah. I think that's a big red flag in a relationship. You want to avoid that. No one wants to feel like a charity. I've spoke to people about this before, because I know that experts will talk about that. It's not. Could you imagine saying to a lady, all right, I'm going to ignore you all week, but on Friday at 4:00 for 20 minutes, I'm going to show you some attention. So she waits all week to get a bit of attention. 20 minutes comes around. Okay, you got my full attention, and then you jump on the phone and do that. How would that person feel?
Terrible.
Bad, isn't it? Could you imagine saying to someone, I'm going to give you 20 minutes attention? That's what it's like on the flip side. That's why we have to get to a point where, whilst we're not biologically the same, we need to have empathy and understanding for each other. Because there's a lot of men, what people don't realize is that a woman would need to feel loved in order to want to make love. And a guy feels loved through the through the activity of making love. That's where he gets his connection. That's where he gets his intimacy. Yeah? And so have you noticed that people with a healthy bedroom scenario, look at them as a couple. 9 times out of 10, no strain, none of the backbiting. You can tell that it's a healthy relationship. And I think what happens is it all starts off well in the very beginning of the relationship, right? Because everyone's turning up being their best selves. But then once everyone goes, well, he's locked down. Oh, I don't need to take her out and be nice anymore. And then both parties wonder why. Well, I'm not getting the attention, physical attention. I'm not getting the emotional attention. And it can become a vicious circle. So as men, we need to make sure that our partners do get good quality attention and care. Because then you will never dead bedroom if you have burning desire for each other.
No, I 100% agree with that. Yeah. I see guys who treat it like I have to get mine, or it's almost like a competition. There's plenty of tools like sex bucket list, making a yes, no, maybe list with your partner. But I remember one of the girls I followed, an influencer, said the hottest thing a guy can do is look at you and say, "What are you into? What are you into?" And take it away from sex. Treat them like a human being. Treat them like somebody that you love. Like do things throw date nights. Take off the pressure. Like you're saying, is they need to feel secure and happy. And it shouldn't be a chore. It shouldn't be something that you expect, or there's plenty of ways to spice up your love life with toys and all this sort of stuff. But have that connection, make them feel valued as a person, make them feel better for being with you. And this would be a podcast on its own about how we can go into and take boundaries and like attention, but they want to feel loved and happy as much as you do. And as you're working on yourself, also work on that connection with them. Be vulnerable, be open and honest. If they don't want to do it right now, go deal with the issues that are there in the relationship, then come back, then build from there. And I think that's something a lot of guys need to do.
Yeah, and what else is unattractive is desperation. If that's what they think, that can be unattractive as well, but it comes very hard when it's been weeks, months or whatever for some gents who have not had any intimacy. And that's the biggest thing, because I think the problem is people don't realise is that's where their connection, the exchange, the oxytocin starts to flow. You think when guys have made love, afterwards, what do you need to get done? Do you know what I mean? It's just like there's almost like a new layer appears. Yeah. And then what happens, you've got that connection. Let's call it being plugged in. And then it starts to dissipate over time. And then that person doesn't realise that they're just not doing as much. They're not as invested in doing that. Whereas if there's a regularity of that connection, the closeness is there, then what happens is you're going to do more for each other as well. Nothing becomes beyond too much to do. Do you know what I mean? But there's a difference between that and being manipulated and breadcrumbed and fed it. Like, well, you want a bit, you're going to have to do this, or you're not getting tonight, not how you be. That kind of, it's a doggy biscuit. That is toxic. And that should be, and it's the same as a guy controlling over a woman. It's all toxic. Get that insecure bullshit out of your relationship, because you're going to destroy it. Both of you will. And if you can't, separate. Do not put up with that kind of behaviour in any relationship. It's going to be hugely damaging, and that will reflect on the kids outside of the bedroom as well.
Yeah, and it's like they say, it's like, don't try to get your love from somebody else. Find, deal with your issues, find self-love, and then don't expect your connection just by sex, by being part of what attracted you to that person in the first place. And like you're saying, it's better to be single than be unhappy. And this is a thing a lot of guys are struggling with. They're in unhappy relationships because they think they have to. They don't want to be single. And
well, it's because generally I think, and we've all been through it, is that you think to yourself, will I get anyone else? So you stay. And you shouldn't do that. And honestly, guys listening, level up in a year. Trust me, but people won't believe it until they experience the changes of the people around them. Because you've changed. The world hasn't changed. You've changed. You'd be very, very surprised what will happen. Guys are lucky in the sense that they can go on a diet, get in shape, dress better, be more confident, and they can all be a series of attraction cues. You mean a guy can be, I don't like using numbers, a guy could be a 4 or a 5 and get to a 7 or 8, or a guy can be a 6 and get to a 9, if you wanted to put numbers by him. We have opportunities because there's various different attraction cues that women find in men. Guys can actually take advantage of that. People go, yeah, but I'm bored. Women will not care if you're bored, if you're in tremendous shape and you look good. Do you understand? So you can offset that, and then you look at, yeah, but you're not 6 foot. I mean, I understand if what you got to look at is most women do want a guy taller than them. So what's the average height of a woman? Maybe 5'2", 5'3", 5'4", I know you see it online, yeah, but he's not 6 foot, or they will use filters and you see a big drop off. If I went on dating site, I'd lose out easy because I'm 5'11.5". In real life, who cares? Do you know what I mean? Because I still tower over most women anyway. So don't let that block you. Stay off the dating sites. Absolutely stay off the dating sites. It's going to do you no favors. This whole, I'll hit 100 people. and message them will just destroy your confidence and self-esteem unless you're the top 5% of men who they swipe on. So dating sites for general guys like you and I, if that was the case, don't even do the dating sites. Do everything in person because it's a different world. That's all synthetic. Some people just want your attention. You know, why would you invest hours and hours every night trying to set up dates for only that one person shows out of 2 or 3 contacts, or you just get played around? Pointless.
A lot of
You're better
them
off-
do it for the attention. You know, you see girls I'm meeting.
They
It's
will
only
for self-esteem regulation. Yeah.
It's, I mean, it is sad, but I mean, it's like focus on your life, regardless of what, if you're in a relationship or whatever, you know, improve yourself, but also then use that confidence, self-esteem, self-love to make your relationship better, to connect better with your kids, you know, and it all starts with you taking that ability, that accountability in your life. And I think we could probably do a podcast in each of these areas, and we'll definitely have you back on. But what would you? I know we try to keep this top level, and you know it's just 2 hours, and we barely touch the surface in a lot of areas. But what would you want people to take from this? You know, if you had to have like a message or a call to action for guys who are 40 plus, or for any guys listening, really, what would you say to them to focus on, to
self? Everything starts with the self, right? So if everything around you, if you got stuff that's not working, the world will not change. It's going to do what it's going to do. You change. And then your world gets better when you make those changes more often than not. So you've always got to focus on yourself. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Worry about what you're doing. Take care of your mental health. Take care of your body. Take care of your manners. Take care of your integrity. Look after those around you. But everything does come back to the self because you need to be self-aware. You need to have self-respect. You need to be worried about what you're doing in order to become a better person. I'm not talking about being solipsistic or narcissistic. I'm not talking about being selfish. I'm saying start with the self, you know, then work out all the things that you need to work on. Because if you've got a heal, only you can do it. That's the self. Yeah. If you understand who you are, you don't have a false self. You're actually constructed of the self, meaning you know who you are. That's self. If you've got a situation where you want to get in shape and get more healthy and you want to repair that, go down that road, it starts again with you. So it's not about being selfish. But most things can be fixed by focusing on you and working out what you need to do, not what everyone else is doing. Because when you start to level up and you raise your standards, what happens? Everything around you, the standards go up as well. Because you've raised yours. Meaning, like we spoke about friends earlier on, holding accountability, how to kill off your big friend group into a small one. Go and hold everyone accountable. It's like kryptonite to people. Instantly, you know who's on your team and you're on their team. Instantly, you'll know people that you can trust. Instantly, you're going to know who's real. Yeah? Ruthless accountability of what? The self. So it all starts with you. Everything's going to come back to you. If you want to give people better experiences and give your time to people and be a better person, you've got to work on you. So focus on that. Don't worry about what Bob next door doing, the neighbour you fucking hate, or that shit on Facebook, or someone on TV that bugs you. Because that's another thing. You know, when people get angry and triggered by stuff on Facebook, that's a shadow projection. So what's happened? You get triggered by that because there's something in there within you. People don't realise that as well. And we didn't even get into talking about doing shadow work and stuff like that because everyone has a dark and a light side, and the idea is that you would integrate it.
Yeah.
But it all begins and ends with you. Accountability, responsibility, self-awareness, everything.
Because it's going to be a hard job. Like, it's a lot of hard work, and there's a lot of stuff we can cover in the next one. But I think that's the thing is people need to stop looking outward. They need to look in and realize true change, true happiness comes from there. And
That's why it's called internal locus of control, not externally. It's internal. This is why you have agency, sovereignty. This is why you're an independent human being that individuates, that's separated from everyone else. It's down to you, the self.
I love it. I love you've got such a great voice for this as well. You've got such a great understanding of it and the ability to be open and not helpful to so many people after everything you've been through, and to come out of it and say, I want to help people. That's such a unique way of doing it. And until we can get you back on, what would you want people to do now? How can they keep in touch? How can they find you on social media? Because I think you've got to do a plus 40 program. I think you've got to get the books and the TED Talks. How can we keep in touch with you and follow you on this amazing journey?
I've just right now it's just at Men Plus 40 on Instagram. I haven't really developed out much of the other socials. I drop content every day, normally video content. I'm launching the Men Plus 40 podcast quite soon, so I've been recording some episodes for that. So you'll see some of the short form content before the long form content comes out. I think the podcast will be launched in about 6 weeks. But right now, it's just been focusing on what we're doing and the structure for Men Plus 40. I've got a sketched outline for the book for the Evolved Man. We'll see how that goes. That's starting to take shape in terms of topics, etc. We'll be launching a brand as well. My wife's a product formulator, and obviously I have background in commerce. So I'd like to launch a Men Plus 40 brand for products for men. And also I'm looking, because of the conferences as well, I'd love to do in the UK a Men Plus 40 conference, and I've kind of penciled that in for September 24. It sounds like a long way away, but when you put conferences together, it takes about a year really with the planning, the lineup and everything else. So yeah, just starting the Instagram, start there, then the podcast, then the book, then the conference, and then we'll launch the brand as well further down the road. But most importantly now is to focus around the content and get that to people first, and to get a feel for what we're trying to do and trying to help men evolve.
Well, that's it for another week, and thank you for listening. It's now time to take what you've learned and use it to develop and enhance your life with the key points mentioned. Listen, try it, embrace it, use it, and crush it. Now's your time to hit that next level in your life. If you liked this episode, then please leave a comment on the show notes or a review of the show on your podcast platform. Everything helps evolve the show. Until next week, keep seeking the next level in your life.